pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's a lot cuter when the kindergarten students do it. All right, Mr. Secretary, roll call.
Mr. Baradelli.
Here.
Mr. Bickerton.
Back here.
Mr. Boglino.
Here.
Mrs. DeCatch.
Here.
Mrs. Hill.
Here.
Mrs. Johnson.
Here.
Mr. Peterson.
Here.
Mr. Thomas.
Here.
Mrs. Yates.
Here.
Everyone's here.
All right, we'd like to welcome the visitors. Visitors are welcome to address the board concerning agenda items, the agenda item. At the time the board discusses it, please limit your comments to 3 minutes. There were no executive sessions or information meetings, no revisions to the agenda. Before we get into new business, I just want to let everyone know, in case you feel so inclined, our swimming and diving team has representation at the Whippeal meet today and tomorrow at Trees Pool, if anyone would like to go support. And our girls varsity basketball team is playing for the WPIAL championship on Saturday morning, 11 a.m. at the Peterson Event Center. So, any support, I'm sure will be welcome. Alrighty, new business. Item A, authorize the administration to stop all work on the pool except for geotechnical analysis and interior natatorium design until the feasibility study is presented by the Borough of Beaver. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Just to catch Mr. Baradelli. Well, it was brought to our attention last week after our decision to approve Phase 1A that the Borough of Beaver was considering what it should do with the municipal pool and the status of the municipal pool. This is not the pool at our facility. This is the pool on Gypsy Glen Road that is maintained by the borough and is on municipal property. The borough manager approached us and asked us if we would potentially be interested in some type of partnership or agreement with them where we could work together to potentially have some type of master facility or joint facility. And lots of people seem to want to give their input, so I'll leave it at that. I don't know what people, if any board members would like to provide any input at this point.
Can we allow any representation from council to speak?
Yeah, I mean, if Borough Council feels so inclined, they would.
Don't jump up too
Mike
fast.
Dealer's two in the back.
There's two of us here, yeah.
What's the,
What are you guys thinking?
first of all, I don't know, do you want me to introduce myself? I'm Mike Elo, I'm a member of Borough Council, and Jim Perini is here with us. I think we're the only two representatives. And so the question comes up every year on our pool, what could and should be done, with it. It was, it's an historic structure. It was opened in 1941. And we had an assessment done, actually when you came on board, Luke, and when Jared came on board, we had an assessment of the pool, structural assessment. And the assessment at that time was that the pool was in pretty good shape. In the meantime, it's required more and more maintenance, and we're considering all of our options on what could and should be done, which includes I don't have to enumerate them, but it means continuing to maintain them, build a new pool, tear it down and forget about it, which we had proposed to do 10 years ago. Fortunately, some citizens jumped up and disagreed with that, and we're kind of in that predicament again, that we think we're going to have major renovations are going to be required. And when this subject came up about the high school considerable renovations on that pool. Question came up whether or not we should be considering some sort of intergovernmental agreement to take a look at a different approach, something similar to what New Brighton has. New Brighton pool is run by the school board, as I understand it, and so that's essentially where we're coming from, and we're early in discussions on this, and you're pretty far along on your discussions now, and so that's kind of where we are.
No, I thank you, Mr. Deal. I appreciate that. I think you hit the nail on the head when you said we're pretty far along. I think this conversation was certainly warranted based on the information we received, and we wanted to have it obviously in a public setting and hear you out and then hear what the board has to say. But my concern is that we're way far ahead of where you guys are, like way far ahead. And if we start delaying, which is what we would do, again, when does that stop again? And I'm not poo-pooing it.
If I may, our main concern was from the taxpayer standpoint. Here we've got almost 5,000 taxpayers in the borough of Beaver. Total taxpayers in the school system is what, approaching 15,000, I guess. And what we would be looking at is tapping into both of those tax bases. In the case of Beaver, taxing into them, jumping into it twice. And here you've got pools that are a couple of 100 yards apart, and from a standpoint of taxpayers, should there be some cooperative? That's what the question came from. And whether that's reasonable to still consider something like that or not, we don't know. It's kind of those are the questions that came up with Borough Council. And I'm only one member of council. I can't speak for all of council as to what the likely approach the council would want to take on this. But those are the questions that came up, and that's why you're probably hearing comments about where we stand.
Yeah.
I have a question. Was this the first time, just this week, that this came up in conversation with the council? Was there any conversation that happened over the past 4 years about possibly partnering with the district? No?
Not much. No, we kind of left that to our borough manager and the school superintendent.
It was really never in discussion. I guess I should introduce myself. I'm Jim Perini. I'm also on Borough Council. And as Mike said, there was a meeting on Tuesday. It was our work session. And to be honest, the amount of money that you're putting into your pool came as a complete surprise to me, honestly. I had always thought that there was going to be some refurbishment money or that you were just going to work to improve your pool. But with the kind of money that the numbers that I'm hearing, sounds like it's a new pool, and that, therefore, we currently have two basically older pools that are within, as Mike said, a couple 100 yards of each other. Our pool is in fair shape, it's not in good shape, and your pool is, I guess, fair to poor shape. So therefore, me, at least myself, never expected the school district to be putting in basically a new pool. So to answer your question, that never came up as an option because we didn't think it was an option from your side. So, and then I guess as Mike mentioned, there would have to be some kind of intergovernmental agreement, but yet, and there's could be a lot of work needed for that because you represent, as Mike said, 15,000 people. You have Brighton Township, Bridgewater, and Vanport as well. So even on the municipal side, it might make sense to have intergovernmental agreements with those other boroughs to make sure that all of their citizens can enjoy this pool complex. And whether that means that you're building a pool that Is it only a 9-month pool? You're only gonna use it during the school year? Is it gonna be available all year long? You know, those are the things I wanted to hear tonight as to what are your plans? What are you really buying for that much money? And therefore, based on what you're doing, we're gonna have to make a decision, you know, that might impact what we do with ours, because it does need some help. So that has been on our radar for 10 years. I think that there was a study which was before me on council, it was done 10 years ago at looking at replacing the entire Beaver pool, and that was too expensive at that time.
Yeah.
So we went the maintenance route. We've been doing a lot of maintenance over the last 10 years and some upkeep. But it's kind of like having an old car. You can put new tires on it, it's still an old car, and I can put new spark plugs in it, and it'll run a little better, but it's still an old car. So it's, we have been doing that maintenance to keep it going, but that's not gonna last forever. So.
And Jim, just to back that up, I know when we did this in 2012/13, the firm that put it together, and Dr. Rowe, I think you were provided with these numbers, but to gut out the Beaver pool and do a whole new design, they projected that cost to be around 1.3. And then if we decided to do the bathhouse, that was like another extra 400,000 or 500,000. So I think the total project came right around 1.7, 1.8 if we did the whole thing. And then there was like splash pad, there was a slide that you can add on for X amount of money. But I think that project came up to about 1.8, and that's whenever we, as the borough, balked on it and decided to continue just to maintain it instead of investing that money. That was back in 2013, so now we're 7 years later. The pool still has issues every year. That's kind of how this all came about.
And I can speak to the business
just
plan.
for clarification, did you say that was 7 years ago?
I think it was between 2012 and 2013 whenever they gave us the design work, if I'm not mistaken. Now, they may have done the feasibility study before that, but when the company came in, I think it was Aquatics Facilities Design or something like that, they did the design and the engineering of it, and they're the ones that gave us the costs, and it came in at that. So that was 2013.
Okay, thank you.
And for sake of clarity, can we refer to like indoor pool, outdoor pool instead of Beaver pool, just to make sure that you know which one we're talking about at each time?
And to clarify for you, there is a business plan attached to this. It's been developed over the last 4 years by the boosters. It is a 12-month pool that would be, the goal would be to have it accessible to the community. The pool in the past has functioned as such, and that would be the hope in the future, once it is refurbished and in proper working order.
So if I can add a couple of things here. So the feasibility study that Mr. Thomas was talking about was done in December 2010. And those numbers were provided to me. Scenario 1, which was to redo the bathhouse and the main pool development, was 1.9 million. In scenario 2, the bathhouse, the main pool, and a splash pad at that time, 10 years ago, was $2.5 million. What I heard from Mr. Madgar about the potential for a feasibility study for a new pool, for a new outdoor pool for the borough, was that there would be 3 scenarios that they would explore. Scenario 1 would be a complete rehab of their current outdoor pool. Scenario 2 would be a complete reconstruction of their outdoor pool. And scenario 3 would be a complete reconstruction considering BASD, considering the school district as part of an aquatic complex. So they would take into consideration our WPIAL, PIAA needs, and see if we could get some kind of synergy with our 2 missions. Clearly, the mission of an outdoor community pool is leisure, sunbathing, and some events. With the school district, we're looking to have our physical education students use that with greater frequency. We have a swim team, the possibility of a club team, and then also some community events, and doing the community events at times when the school isn't using it for either phys ed or for the swim team. When you try and combine those two missions into one pool, it becomes evident pretty quickly that that's not going to work, whether it's for weather conditions or a mission of what they're trying to accomplish. So then it needs to be two pools in an aquatic complex, one outdoor, one indoor. And so then you begin to decide, when after being approached, we started to look at, well, would we move the outdoor pool to the school district site next to our pool? And there's some significant issues with doing that, space being one of the concerns. If you were to put it between where the stadium currently is and where the current pool is, you're going to run into not having enough space for the sunbathing and for all the other kind of fun stuff that you'd want to see with an outdoor pool. Sliding boards and decking and a baby pool and a splash pad. You really can't quite get it there. And then there's also the additional consideration that at some point it seemed like a good idea to build a school on a floodplain and in a swamp.
And over a creek.
And over a creek. Yeah.
Cheap ground.
Cheap ground, right? So, but it certainly poses additional problems when you're talking about digging down and putting a pool in. So that location poses a problem. The other side would be a parking lot. We, of course, could consider where else we could move parking. Might be a little tough, but I'm sure we could figure something out. If we go any closer to where our boiler room is and we go that route, we'd be radically changing the footprint of our school, and so we'd be getting into a lot of additional money. And all of this to say that it would be pretty unusual to have a leisure pool on school district property. Probably not completely unheard of, but unusual nonetheless. Then there's the possibility that we might move our current indoor pool to where the outdoor pool currently is, in that general vicinity, and create a new building for an indoor pool and create a new outdoor pool. I think this is more along the lines of what Mr. Madgar was considering, saying, well, if the district is going to spend $3 or $4 million, and the borough potentially could spend something like that, if you put those two things together, do you somehow come up with an aquatic complex that people could be proud of for many years to come? Is there any possibility that that there could be savings realized?
Savings for taxpayers.
Savings for taxpayers, absolutely. So maybe you wouldn't have to expend the whole amount, but you'd have a really nice facility in the end that could be used year-round, and that there would have to be an intergovernmental agreement as to how all of those things would work out, which those details are possible. We can work those details out, but it is not going to be an easy thing to do. But nothing good ever is easy. If we're talking about erecting a building and putting an indoor pool in and a new outdoor pool, you're talking, well in excess of $10 million. So there would have to be something else that would help to fund that, in my estimation. And really, we would also have the additional problem of not being able to combine filtration and mechanical systems, because they are two separate pools, two different temperatures, two different spaces. And so we can't say that we could somehow put those two things together and realize some kind of savings. We'd have to discuss liability issues. We'd need to discuss ownership issues, whether we're putting it on municipal property or whether the borough would be putting it on district property, who actually owns that, finding ways to get around that. I believe that we could. Cost sharing for maintenance and supplies. And then, of course, that idea of management and intergovernmental agreement and or a joint governance board. So there's a lot of obstacles, and I see.
Is that all?
I see some benefit to taxpayers, and I see some benefits to the community. I love the fact that the borough manager was thinking with the school district in mind. And I like that we can come together and think about the community. So we have a school-minded community and a community-minded school. That kind of synergy is going to go places. It might not be with this particular project, but it might be on some big things in the future. So I think the two groups working together with the taxpayer in mind, with the benefit of kids in mind, is an excellent idea. But there are certainly a lot of obstacles here, and I'm not sure. While I've said I see some benefits for the borough potentially, I don't know exactly what the benefits are, or the benefits haven't been evident to me. They haven't been obvious to me what those benefits would be for the school district.
And can I add too, Dr. Rowe, that was a really good explanation. Jim and Mike, thanks for coming in to explain where your group is, and it definitely is an idea. I'll add one more challenge.
Sure.
We would still have our facility that we would have to deal with. So after $10 to $15 million commitment, I don't know what percentage each entity would pay, but you still have your challenge with the outdoor pool. And what do you do with that? How do you decommission that? But we would still have a middle school, high school facilities challenge. And you know, when you hear pool, you think a separate build. It's not. It's integrated, just like the gym and the auditorium are in this poorly planned, constructed, and built facility. So how do where would we get the money? Possibly a good idea, and I really kind of feel for your position. I think we all know what it's like, but where do we get the money to fix what we're trying to fix? We're really trying to maintain a facility. That's what our job is.
Yeah, when I first heard it, I will admit I got excited at the prospect, thinking of this big, shiny, new, big glass windows. Wouldn't this be nice? It could be a community asset. We could really create more of a campus feel. And then I literally started making a pros and cons list, and the pros are it feels nice and it looks nice, and the cons are everything else. The cons are the money, the timing. I mean, we've been dealing with this for 3.5 years, and I understand council maybe didn't anticipate the level of funding, but even if the level of funding that we're talking about, which is $1.2 million to $1.7 million for the new pool, plus the renovations to that physical space, the renovations to that physical space might be different than what we're going to do if there's not a pool there, but there are still renovations to do. There's still HVAC issues, there's still roofing issues, there's building envelope, plus, like Aaron said, the cost of making it into classrooms or another gym or anything else. Adding on that we are this far into this before this is even coming up, I just see no logistical way of being able to make this work.
I share frustration maybe with some other board members, because I would really like to work with you guys, with the council, and with the taxpayers of Beaver specifically, and see what the options are. I think the timing for us, I personally, I think it's just too late. I mean, you guys are in step 1, we're in step 6,462 that started 5, 6, 7 years ago. So I'd love to see where this could have went. I think I might see a little bit more cons than maybe some other people, but for us to stop and go down that road, we're talking, it'd be a year or more after studies are done and intergovernmental agreements are negotiated, and I don't know, I'm not too positive about stopping our progress. I mean, this has been a long time in the making.
I have a question. All I've heard in this conversation is 2 pools, an indoor pool and an outdoor pool. And I'm wondering why. Why are there going to be 2 pools? Why isn't it 1 pool? New Brighton has one pool. They use it for community and school. I don't understand why all of a sudden we have to go from one, I mean, if we do this, if you would partner with the borough, why is it a two-pool situation? Director Johnson made a point of the business plan being a 12-month business plan. Obviously, sunbathing in the sun is not important to their business plan if they plan on using the indoor pool at the school 12 months out of the year. So I'm trying to understand how let me finish, Pete. I'm trying to understand how, if it's a 12-month business plan and you're interested in having that pool open in the summer, why it can't be one building that both governments are contributing to. I just don't, I understand your.
With one pool?
With one pool.
Yeah, I actually think that you're right, that is a possibility, but if you buy into the fact that there's actually two separate missions, one is leisure and recreation, where one of the benefits seems to be enjoying the outside and being in the sun,
Right.
then that can't meet the district's mission related to students being able to swim.
But I'm trying to understand how the business plan for a 12-month indoor pool then flies if you have an indoor pool competing with an outdoor pool in the summertime.
I don't know that it's
The
going to
indoor
be
pool is-
competition.
yeah, it's not going to be, it's not designed for
So you're
leisure.
gonna have an indoor pool that's gonna be open in the summertime, and it's not going to compete with an outdoor pool that's 200 feet away?
Well, it's not designed to work for leisure. That's not the point of it.
Well, the outdoor pool has lessons and teaching.
But not to the extent that it can do it indoors.
It's
supposed to be
there's
your
so many
whole
different-
lifeguard finish those
It's
lessons.
not just getting in the water and moving your arms,
Yeah.
there's club swimming. Club swimming,
I'm
there's swimming
just
clinics, there's diving,
asking.
there's lifeguarding, there's so many different things other than recreation. So I mean,
Well, the Beaver Outdoor Pool tries to run those programs too. before.
that doesn't do club swimming.
They've tried to do the
For that.
scuba diving lessons, they've tried to do the yoga classes in the morning, so there would be competition against that.
Right, that's my point. You're gonna have an
In
indoor
some areas.
facility.
I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but they do try to run those programs.
I would just like to say one thing. I agree with Luke, and I think there's an opportunity for both of these pools. Has there really been a deep dive done into that feasibility study that was done? I think mine is dated 2011. It showed, it was $1.9 million. The total debt, I think, it would put $78 a month, I think, or a year in added tax burden to the community households, which equals to be about $6.50 a month, which if you take the price of a 3-month pool pass, season pass, it's actually cheaper in terms of cost to the household, to the homeowner. Is there a way to dust off that feasibility program, work together and try to find a long-term solution for that pool? I'd be more than willing to roll up my sleeves and help. I think we've done a lot of legwork. I think we've done a lot of, we've built a pretty solid Rolodex, I would think, with the project team that's currently in the system of quality contractors, pool designers, all of that. And there is an opportunity, I think, to do both. The issue is if you do one, in the investigation that I've done, you're talking a big nut to swallow. You're talking 15, 20, the city of Chico, granted they're in California, they had a similar issue. They put something like this together. The price tag on it was $20 million. Harrisburg.
They also
did the
had a
same
20,
thing.
theirs was like a 27-lane pool though, you're talking.
It was
bigger.
27 lanes.
It was a lot bigger than what.
It was 8 lanes.
8
8-lane competitive, but it was 2 pools.
Yeah, that's what it was. But
It was big. So
Yeah, right about that.
it was 2 pools in the same complex, but there's others. So you probably did some investigation too.
I looked into it a little bit.
It's huge. We're talking a big dollar figure, and it'd be more to do the complex than to do each separate one. There's also the annual operational costs go up considerably. I think that pool was $800,000 a year in annual operating costs.
So from my understanding, they have not done a feasibility study yet, so we really don't know the exact cost.
They did one back in 2011.
Not for this.
For this.
No
The replacement,
feasibility.
not to do one pool.
Not for this, is what I'm saying. And
Not a joint pool.
And although I'm honestly concerned because a point was raised that the Beaver taxpayers, Beaver Borough, are going to be paying for 2 pools, whereas the other parts of the school district will be paying for 1. And that's something that I hadn't considered before as well. So, I mean, we have to think about so many different angles on this because we have to worry about the taxpayers, especially those who are retired, who are on a fixed income. And it might not seem like a lot of money, but to them it might be a lot of money.
I hear you.
Well, they're doing that
Is there
either way,
an
though,
opportunity
right?
for the boroughs to work together in terms of tax funding for that? I mean, everybody uses it. Vanport uses the pool, Brighton Township uses it. I think it's a fair question to ask.
Even if we created one, if we were able to do one pool in in an indoor facility that was able to be used for both missions, although they are different, right? They have some overlap in that they have water, but even if we did that and had a deck that was big enough and we skipped sunbathing and everything like that, we're still talking about a cost that is significantly more than double of what we are doing right now. In addition, back to
How do you know that, Scott?
Yeah, and also
Because I talked to a design company that said that for the amount of money that we're paying to do this rehab, between $3 to $5 million, I was told that you could build a new facility in that same price. So here in $10, $15 million, I don't know where that's coming from.
So-
That's not what I heard from somebody.
Well, let me answer that. So Upper St. Clair, and we may say ours wouldn't be that size, but I believe Upper St. Clair's at their recreational center was 21 million. If I was looking at the right numbers. But let me get back to answer what you were talking about before. Let's use 3.5 as our number, right? And we say, hey, if the borough, the combination of boroughs and townships that make up our school district somehow find a way to double that 3.5 to 7, and we can get something. That 3.5 that we're talking about is not what we're spending. We're going to have an additional cost here. Because again, our current Phase 1A, although it has a lot of things that are specific to the pool, we still are going to have to do a new roof. And whether it's for the pool or not for the pool, it's going to be several $100,000. We need a new HVAC unit in that section. And if it's for the pool or not for the pool, it's obviously 2 very different things and at very different cost points, but they're still there.
Well, that's why it's a range up to $5 million. That includes the roof and the HVAC and stuff like that. So if you take out the roof and the HVAC, that's where you're getting to $3.5 million.
No, John, what's the cost of the gunite pool? Is that 1.2 to 1.7?
Yeah, the gunite was, or shotcrete, about 1.2 up to the 2 million for the Martha.
Okay.
Minus the money that's been raised.
Right.
Yeah.
So the pool itself,
I'm
I'm
sorry,
sorry,
the money
Scott.
that's been raised is $200,000, that doesn't put a dent in 3
I
minutes.
love how you make that sound like that's nothing. You know how
I
long
didn't
it's
say that was
Okay,
nothing.
hang on, hang on.
I didn't say that was nothing, when you're
Hang
spending
on.
taxpayer money,
So the answer.
200,000 and 4 million is not, that's not even 10%.
Okay, guys,
Guys,
I'm just now thinking about
po-
it because
point-
the school.
Point of order here. Point of order here.
They've had 8 years to look at
So,
something.
ma'am.
4 years
Ma'am,
that they could have been like, hey, school, let's go together.
Thank you.
I understand the passion. That's why we're all here. But again, going back to the numbers we're talking, let's round up and say it's 2 million for shotcrete. Between 2 and 5 is everything else that we're talking for that building. Now again, maybe we say that 3 million gets cut in half because it's not pool specific things, but we're still over $1 million in addition just to make the outside, and that's with a giant hole in the ground with no use to it. You want to make, people have talked, we've had presentations for STEAM labs and more classrooms, and these are multi-million-dollar projects on top of multi-million-dollar projects to do the pool and the building envelope. It's just, it's a cost that what started as in 2016 $150,000 that has just continued to get bigger and bigger, and at this point, in my opinion, we're at the rip a Band-Aid off, build a new one, fix the envelope, and be done. Now, we can go above that, but going above that is spending millions more creating this new master facility, and we're already getting people saying, you're spending too much, it's too much money, and I happen to agree. I've said this to a lot of the folks from the pool before. If we had known some of what we know, different decisions might have been made along the way. But this is where we're at. And my opinion is, at this point, fix it the right way, do it now, but keep the cost as low as we can with where we are.
I have one more thing. The STEAM center that we were presented with at the board meeting, to renovate that whole space was $3 million to add a STEAM center instead of a pool.
So Tracy, can I just add though?
I'm just saying.
I know you
I don't
are.
want the public to have misinformation, because saying that the STEAM center would be $3 million in addition to the other money that we're spending is not correct.
Nor do I want them to have disinformation.
No, but the
So
STEAM
let's
center would have been
be
$3
clear.
million with the total renovation of that space.
Okay. And Tracy, first of all, let me just thank you for your service, because these are the issues you had to tackle for years. And I'm not being cheeky, I really appreciate that. I don't know what ultimately your point is here.
My point is good stewards of taxpayer dollars, you should at least explore a partnership with the borough.
We would love to do that. It's not feasible. We would love to do that, and we don't want to be the board that the Beaver Borough citizens blame for not moving their borough pool forward. If we could, we would. But I think Dr. Rowe has laid out, Scott has laid out, Luke has laid out, almost everybody on the board is telling you that if we could, we would. We don't have the money to subsidize that pool
I appreciate it, thank you.
and protect our facilities here.
Well,
And if we're talking about stewards of money, let's talk about when you left the board.
Mhm.
Well, $35 million in debt
Mhm.
and some of the highest taxes in district history is not exactly good stewards of the money.
Can we discuss the pool?
So
per-
I just want you to understand that we're in a very difficult situation, and we're doing as much as necessary, not as much as
$35
possible
million in
with the
debt
money we
and-
have.
And spending an additional $4 million on the pool. is
Because
also
we're in a
not good
situation
money. But
that we
I'm
don't
not
have a
arguing the point
choice.
with you. By all means, take the vote. By all means, take the vote.
I'm not sure what that
Because
means.
everybody
You're
on
really
board
throwing
is
the cat
ready to
amongst the
vote, for
pigeons
sure.
here, because we're trying to come up with the best solution, and we would love to work with the borough.
So then work with the borough.
Well, we're
Delay it
telling
for
you all the
another-
reasons why we
delay it for
can't.
Delay it for another 6 months and work with the borough.
But we don't have that kind of money now, or 6 months, or 6 years from now. We're not talking about a $3 million
You don't
facility.
know
We're
what
ta-
you're talking about because you haven't heard the proposals and you haven't done anything.
I thought you weren't gonna argue with us on it. We should just take
We're-
the vote.
but there are no proposals, and my hunch would probably be supported by data in a year. I agree with Dr. Rowe. This is going to be a $10 to $15 million project, and it doesn't include the demolition of the old building or maintaining our facility.
When you say, what do you mean by demolition of the old building?
What are you going to do with the old facility that's in the outdoor area? What do you do with it?
The old
At the
outdoor
municipal
pool?
pool or
The
our
outdoor,
pool?
the municipal, the outdoor.
Yeah.
Wendy wanted us to refer to it as indoor, outdoor, outdoor. What do you do with that?
you know, the other thing, guys, that we have to
Well,
think
you have to
about,
demolish it.
that we need to think about is that we, as a board, made a decision and a commitment to move forward with our pool. There's no guarantee that, and I say this respectfully, Mike and Jim, there's no guarantee that Borough Council would approve whatever the feasibility study says. There's no guarantee of that. We could partner on the feasibility and find out what those costs are, figure things out, but, you know, we've made the commitment, we've put our step forward. We don't have a guarantee, even after a feasibility, that the council would take out a loan, get a bond, whatever you guys would need to do to make that decision on your end. So we could go down that road, we could pause, we could delay, find out. You let me finish real quick? Find out the feasibility is whatever number people want to use, and we say, hey, that's a great idea, intergovernmental, let's do it, and then council can say,
That's a risk you take, but
It is
our
a risk
pool
we take.
the pool is operational right now.
yeah,
So the risk we would be doing would be hurting these guys because we would be asking them to wait another year, operate it as it is now. Let's see if something can come together, and if it doesn't, then we come back and we move forward with what we just decided on 2 weeks ago. But at least we give ourselves the option to take a step back, look at it, get all this stuff done. Everybody's throwing around numbers that I don't think are, hard data. But let's look at it, have a design company come in there, do it, and then if it doesn't, and if they don't move forward or they don't want to do it, and we don't want to do it, then you back off. All that you're losing, and I hate to say time's not a valuable asset to lose, but the pool's still operational right now. So all we'd really be doing is losing time, and I personally think it would be in the best interest of both parties to at least give it a look, see if it works. If it doesn't, then we wash our hands and move on.
And Jay, I agree, and Lincoln, just citizen. I agree that there are a lot of guesses going on. I don't know if anybody here is an expert on any of this, and I really have no skin in the game either way. But I don't think anybody here is an expert on really what we should do. If we do have the experts come in, maybe they might have ideas that none of us have even considered. And so if we listen to that and see, and I was just thinking back to what Carrie had said about this whole thing is built on a swamp. Imagine when this whole thing was built. I'm just imagining same conversations of, let's get the cheapest thing in, we can do it, and now what are we dealing with? And so I hate to have history repeat itself. So maybe we do take that extra 6 months to a year just to see what the options are. And so what your point is, if it's too much, great, let's move forward with what the board already voted for.
That's all that I think that's all that they were recommending, and that's all that I think we should at least see if it's worthwhile for the overall community. If it doesn't work out, we lost time. And I know that's not good for you guys because you're excited because we decided to do this already, but I just think with what was proposed to us that we should at least give it a shot, take a look at it. If it doesn't work, then we wash our hands and we move on.
Mrs. Hare, you had signed up.
Yes, if I could address the
Sure.
board, please. School board members, borough council representative, concerned citizens, and friends of the pool. My name is Leslie Hare and I live at 1098 4th Street. I am a firm supporter of both the municipal pool and the school pools. In 2011, I was a member of an ad hoc committee that was formed to study the viability of the municipal pool. After lengthy studies and numerous community meetings, it was determined that the investment into a new aquatic facility was not what the community wanted, nor was it beneficial to the borough at the time. Both pools cater to diverse groups in the community as a whole. Summer usage for the municipal pool is at an all-time high. Revenue and attendance has far exceeded expectations under the excellent direction of the current pool manager. The borough has done well in renovating this historic asset of our community, expanding the deck, upgrading equipment, and adding beauty to the property that accents the adjoining school campus. True, there are maintenance and sustainability issues, but is the answer to these problems solved by combining the two pools? I think not. The high school pool should better serve the district by instituting Learn to Swim programs for K through 12. The use of the pool as a classroom for STEAM-based projects also holds an advantage for our students here at Beaver. The community has expressed interest in swim clubs and lap swimming evenings and weekends. As everyone was well aware, the Swim Boosters have been working on supporting this effort for the last 4 years and have raised $100,000, which was matched by the Education Foundation. It is time to move forward. This is not about 32 students and 2 water sport teams, as the Beaver County Times stated in today's paper. At the last school board meeting, a teacher spoke from the Moon School District and opened our eyes to the fact that this facility is a classroom. Money is allocated and in place to continue the swimming program that saves lives and supports lifeguard certification. Let us advance independently to better serve our school district and our community. Thank you.
Mrs. Ray, you had.
Christy Bringer is the manager,
Yes.
if you didn't know.
She's here.
She's here, she's right there. And yes, you do do a good job.
Thank you, I appreciate it, but it's not all me.
And you
Trust me.
keep our kids safe too.
Thank you, we try. I have good staff.
Hey, Mrs. Ray, you had said,
Well, at the last meeting we had, when you all had your vote, I think, Heinz, I think you had said that this was the appropriate time to act was now because of interest rates. Am I wrong?
That was for the bond issue, yes.
Yes.
Interest rates just.
So if we wait another year, we may not have that
No,
opportunity.
that was
again.
bonds, it's separate from.
We already took the bond, so it's already locked. I mean, not locked.
Yeah, anything could happen in interest rates. So it's just unheard of lows.
and they went even lower.
And they went lower today.
They're projecting the Fed's gonna lower interest rates 3 times within the next month to boost the stock market. That's what they're
I
projecting.
had two more things.
He's right.
With all due respect, Jared, you haven't been into probably the pool actual area, or you would know that some of our kids have gotten hurt on those blocks. You can't say that school or that pool is in a good working condition. Our kids get better times at other schools because of their starting blocks, etc. So with all due respect, you're wrong in that area.
I wasn't actually last week, but we did a full review of it last week.
What's that, Pete?
What do you think?
What's that?
What do you think?
I thought the locker rooms were really bad.
Amen.
Yeah.
And those aren't even part of our project, so we're gonna fix a
I
$4
thought
million
they were.
pool, and we're
I
gonna
thought
have the
somebody
worst
said last
god-awful
meeting that they
locker
were
rooms
part
in
of that.
probably the entire tri-state area, so.
I thought they were part of that. I thought somebody at that last school board meeting said that they were part of that, as well as the stands.
It's on our top 200 capital expenditure list, but I don't think it made it into the.
There's no price on there at all, nothing priced out on something, you know.
There's not really 200, is there?
What is it, Dino? What's the total number of the things that I asked us to look at and prioritize? The locker room's on there somewhere, but it's not part of this initial, what we approved, so. We're gonna have a nice new pool in the
And
worst
thirdly,
locker
and
rooms ever.
maybe this is kind of a stupid question, I don't know, I'm not a money person. But if you talk about, okay, so everybody keeps saying the taxpayer. So we have our pool, the indoor pool for the school, raising taxes, whatever. And then the outdoor pool, if it's gonna be one big aquatic center and it's gonna cost, let's say, $8 million, won't the taxes still be the same whether it's 2 separate pools or one big pool? I don't see the cost saving.
That's a very good question, actually. So the pool is not going to really affect your taxes.
That's what I've heard too.
Yeah.
In the school pool?
The
Is
school
not gonna
pool.
affect your taxes?
Well, so if we want to talk about that, we can. Go ahead.
Well, you issued a bond, and somebody asked John where the payment for the debt service was gonna come from at the last meeting.
Yeah.
And his statement was that Dino's capital expenditure budget is $400,000 a year. $385,000 is going to be the debt service on the bond that you issue. And it's gonna come out of Dino's budget. So if you have a $400,000 budget and you're gonna take $385,000 a year out of it, that leaves you $15,000. I did the math, I'm smart. And that leaves you $15,000 a year for capital expenditures for Dino. What is that gonna get you?
But Tracy, that budget is to do the projects we need done. So instead of spending $400,000 every year, we're taking the lump sum up front and doing it all at once
Right,
and
let
then
me
paying it
finish
off. So
my
you're just
thought
washing
back
what
up.
you were.
If by some chance you have something that breaks, like the boiler that we've have issues in the past because we have hard water in these communities and it's hell on a boiler. Or you have a chiller or an ice machine or something like that break that you need to replace immediately. Things that you need to replace immediately, $15,000 isn't gonna do it.
John, what's the total maintenance and capital expenditure budget approximately?
But something like that, by the way, can come out of the bonds. That capital project list is going to be reevaluated and reprioritized anytime something like that happens. What was your question?
What's the total maintenance and capital expenditure budget, excluding salaries and benefits? Approximately, what do we set aside for?
So, Dino, help me remember here. 600 category is where you have about 800,000.
Yeah.
300 category had about 300,000 or 400,000.
I think it's 350.
So we're probably about 1.2 million.
Okay. So out of that 1.2, our 385 comes off. The other things are stuff that we're budgeting for. We're assuming that things are going to break and we're going to need new light bulbs and things
Our
like that.
utilities and supplies are taken out of that, yeah.
So, again, the budget amount that you just spoke of is earmarked except for the 400,000. When you just gave the number of whatever to the 300 account and then, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, all of that money that's budgeted in that budget is accounted for somehow, whether it's utilities or whatever, correct?
Right, so you take.
Okay, so the only leeway you have is that $400,000.
Yes. But you would get 9.5 million in leeway.
Well, I understand what you're saying, because you're gonna borrow the money and you're gonna leave it sit there, and then if something comes up, you're gonna spend the money even after you have your prioritized list, which has been what's been happening over the last several years, because everybody wants to know why everything hasn't been fixed, and that's exactly why. Because every time we take out a bond issue with an intention to fix something, something else pops up because of the facility that we have.
Yep.
We haven't had a total renovation in this building since 1993, I believe, was the last total renovation.
95.
95? Okay, so the last total renovation was in 95, so if we were still under PlanCon and we were still doing all of that, we actually are due to have a complete building renovation, which we now aren't able to do.
Right, it's gonna be done in stages, that's all we can do, that's all we can afford.
So all of these things that have been popping up that have been breaking have been because we are approaching the life expectancy of the building that we had done. And it needs to be replaced, which is, again, like I said, instead of us doing it all at one time, we've been doing it in stages. But that being said, every time we borrow money to do something, something else pops up.
Okay, I think someone else wanted to speak here.
Yeah.
Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I haven't been at a board meeting, school board meeting for probably 35 years. My daughter both graduated from Beaver High School in the mid to late 90s. But when I saw that the school district and Beaver Borough were maybe interested in at least talking about some kind of a common pool area, it really grabbed my attention. So not having any history about this thing, what I do is I go back to the very beginning of things to try to educate myself. And one of the things that I looked at are all of the school board's recommendations, all your procedure, your mission statement, and what have you. And I don't know if you read them lately, but 601 of the school board objectives says that the board recognizes its responsibility to the taxpayers of the district to be sure that public monies expended by the school district are utilized for the furtherance of pupil education in a manner that will ensure full value to the taxpayers and that adequate constraints and records are established to ensure that end. That's your objective. That's what's in your records. So you're responsible to the taxpayers, not to the citizens of Beaver or anybody else, but to the taxpayers. And that's all I have to say at this point. It would be interesting to come to future meetings and see what this is all about.
Can you just give us your name and address for the record?
Mine?
Yes, sir.
I'm Mike Durham. I live in Brighton Township, Grandin Circle.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Any other public comment? Any other board comment?
Scott, I want to address Jared real quick on his desire to move forward, because I'd love to do it, but here's what I'm concerned about. Here's what I'm most concerned about, because this hasn't been a year in the making. This has been multiple years in the making for this pool, multiple years. And if we pause, my big concern is that in a year, if nothing comes out of it, we just kicked it down the road again, and then we start all over again, and then who knows? I don't know what the future would hold if we would pause, and that actually scares me. And it will cost more, I mean, we know that, it'll go up a little bit, but I don't
On
wanna
the flip
see-
side, we could also be sitting 20 years down the road from now and saying, it would have been nice if we maybe would have come together and done something really awesome opposed to two separate sides doing two different
I
things.
think it's okay that if we like put some brakes on this now and just take a pause and really look at what is the best option. I think we probably do need to do pool facility in some capacity, but if we just take a break, look at what prices are the best, either work with the borough or not, we need to just stop, take a look at everything, and then move forward. So you're saying that there's been a lot of progress going into this, there's been a lot of work on this in the past couple of years, but does that really matter if we're just spending a lot more than we need to down the road? We should be taking a look at it now and planning accordingly for the future.
I think what we're saying is that it looks like it's gonna cost more for us to put,
But we
and
don't-
that's what
yeah, we
everybody
don't know
said,
that.
for
Like,
us to
these
put two
studies haven't been
facilities
done
together.
about, like, everything we're talking about working with the borough. I mean, as far as I know, this has just come up, the whole working with the borough thing. So we do studies for that, make sure, like, look at the spending for that. We just don't know that yet. We need to look at that before we truly make these claims.
I don't think I have enough information, for me personally, based on all the work that's been done in this board and previous boards, to pause it. I don't think I have enough information that makes me want to believe that a pause is the best step forward. It's me personally. I understand your point, I understand Director Thomas's point, but my concern is that the pause represents massive delays. And if we look at the history of the pool, this pool and the project and it's working, it's not working, what do we do? And let's wait, let's see what happens next year, let's make some improvements here, and let's get it through another season and another season and another season. I don't know if that would stop if we did hit that pause button. And I'm not willing to make that decision or make that vote to hit that pause button. I feel confident about the plan that we have. I feel confident about the direction we have, that we see the pool going with the decisions that we've made for it. And I'm just not willing to do that. If the timing was different, I would be on board. I would. If the timing was different, I would be on board. It's just, the timing sucks, plain and simple.
I do understand your concern. I think it would be wise to take a brief break and just, I don't even know how long this study would take to see how much this would all cost. But a very brief break just to see, just to do the study, get the prices, and then move forward.
Yeah, that's absolutely reasonable. I think, it looks like we're about to take the vote here. I think I wanted to say that, at least for me, the only danger in communication is believing that it's been achieved. I actually kind of heard from people who want to move forward with the borough and people who think we should move forward with our own project, kind of cite what I said as supporting their position. And that's because, again, this isn't a right versus wrong. These are two separate sides that are very passionate about what they're thinking and what they're believing, and want to move forward. My comments at the beginning weren't to say that we shouldn't work with the borough. Quite the opposite. It's to say that right now the benefits aren't obvious to me of what that would be if we worked with the borough. It is distinctly possible, as some board members have said, and as the last speaker said, that we would see those if we took the time to pause. It is possible that in stopping, we might actually be able to have that synergy and have something that is better than the two things separately. When you put them together, that we could create something even better. So neither side is wrong here. But unfortunately, some decision has to be made today because we are up against some deadline here. It doesn't even necessarily have to be the business item that we have before us. There's a multitude of other things that this business item could be if desired.
Point of clarification, Dr. Rose, can you please explain the deadline that you just referenced?
Yeah, we are moving forward with, once it was approved at our last board meeting, we start to move forward with getting contracts for HVAC and lighting and the the scaffolding and the design and everything that goes into that phase 1A. So if the board wishes to stop kind of leaking that money towards something that we might not actually use, now's the time for them to say, okay, stop for right now. The way this is worded is that we would stop until the borough's feasibility study has been completed and discussed. If the borough then decided that their option 3 in working with the district was the route that they wanted to go, then we would start working with them, start working with that design process. So that's why we need to stop now, so that we're not spending money on a lot of different things that aren't actually going to be useful to us if it's not going to be a pool facility.
And have those contracts been executed at this point, or are they in progress?
The design is mobilized, but the actual construction is not. We're in the planning stages. The meeting is scheduled for next week. But the design has started.
At this point, is that what I understand you say?
No, we do have a contract executed on the phase 1A, 1B, and 2, but we didn't do the pool yet.
But if we chose to put this on hold right now, could we get out of, could we tell that contract, could we tell them to stop, or are we already past that point?
So probably the next logical stopping point for the inside of the pool building would be to at least get to 90% of that. If you delay and we don't get to that point and you say pick it up and go back to where you were, we'll probably miss a whole nother season if we have to do that. We're not going to make it.
Phase 1A was designed to do the building envelope and physical infrastructure first and the pool second, because the plan is we want to put a new pool in a good building, not a new pool in a bad building, and then fix the building.
And it runs from March until November, is that with the production?
Yeah.
So that the swim team can then practice. They have a season next year.
All right, any other comments, questions?
I do.
My name's Wendy Hamill and I live in Brighton Township, and I believe that you should not pause, and I think that these are competing missions here, and no one even said, I don't know if the public in Beaver is all shouting out that they want a big aquatic center. And my kids have gone to the Beaver pool. They like the grassy area. It is the location of it being close to the center where you can, with all the grass and where people, the volleyball net and all of that, sort of all fits over there. I just feel it's competing missions, and I think that you're making a big mistake if you pause.
Thank you.
I should pause, but I'm not going to. I appreciate what you came in today to do. It's nerving. It's unnerving to speak in front of these folks. But your last question wasn't a dumb one. It's an important one. It's about taxes, right? We're all concerned with taxes. All of us. We all pay taxes in this district who are making this meaningful vote. And I got to tell you that of this bond, I don't know what percentage, there's some number whizzes here, but it's about 10%, right? For the pool. About 10% of the money that we're going to be borrowing is actually going into the actual pool, the hole in the ground. I like when you said that.
10 to 20.
Can I borrow this from a minute, Jared? Sure. This represents
1.2 to 2 million.
Right.
10.
Of 10.
10 million.
So about little
10 to 20.
10%.
10 to 20.
Yeah, 12 to 20. Yeah. Or 10. So capital budget plan.
We all
Here it is,
graduated.
right? This is all non-pool stuff. Right? Facilities guy. There's a lot of items here. When you said 200, not quite 200, but you were serious. We have to fix some facilities, right, guys?
Correct.
Like now.
Correct.
Right. So we don't want to do this. We don't want this to happen. But the pool is not going to raise your taxes like maybe the media or the comments that you read may suggest. What's raising your taxes are unfunded mandates, escalated contract obligations, and simply, are you ready for this? In the state of Pennsylvania and in our country, districts like Beaver that has kind of a wealth ratio, I don't want to get weird here, but we're about what, John? About 0.52?
About 0.55.
What that means is we're not a rich district and we're not a poor district, so we don't benefit. We pay for what we have. Right, jump in and correct me at any point. We pay for that on the backs of residents. It's residents who make up our tax base, our revenue stream, not businesses, not the federal government, and not the state of Pennsylvania like they do. The system's not set up for us. Fair? So taxes aren't going to be raised based on a decision on the poll. Taxes are going to be possibly raised in the future because of other things. And so when you read this stuff that this means your taxes are going up, I don't think that's true.
Aaron, I want to just jump in. I agree with you, but just partially. I do think that it's fair to say, in my opinion, that the pool is a part of the puzzle, right? It's not to say that it will have no impact on your taxes. We're talking 10 to 20 on this bond issue, right? So it's not fair to say it's no impact, because it is some.
It is some.
But there are. It is a very small portion. When you look at like what Aaron just said, unfunded mandates, contractual obligations that we face from raises and pensions and things like that, those types of things are what are driving tax increases. I should say are driving a majority of tax increases.
It would be nice if the media would report that instead of bashing our school district for raising taxes. And you know who feels the brunt of that? Our kids at school.
Yeah, there you go.
Because our kids are
go.
getting bashed at
There you
school
go.
for being part of the swim team and making our kids, making their parents raise their taxes. Oh, and then the kids are getting, they get put down for, oh, and then we're gonna have to take swim class because of the swim team getting a new pool, and our parents' taxes, but that's the media. And the media puts that out there, and nobody is correcting them. So thank you for correcting
And here's an experiment that probably won't take place, but I bet if we didn't fix the pool, pay attention to your taxes over the next 5 years.
Right.
And if we don't put 1 penny into that pool, for all the people that disagree partially or fully,
right.
I wonder what our taxes are going to look like in every year for the next 5 or 10 years. So it's not an experiment that's going to happen, but I wonder what would happen if that did.
I do have a question about that, though. You're talking about how our tax increases are generally there because of unfunded mandates and pensions and salaries.
And other
I understand
things.
that. I understand that.
Yeah.
Let me finish my thought. So I know, because of serving on the board, that the tax increase that we implement every year covers the increase in the pension and salaries and benefits. Okay? That tax increase that we increase your taxes by every year covers that amount and gives us pretty much nothing for anything else. Okay? So here's my question. We're looking at spending all this money, and I know that the facilities need done. I mean, there was a kid that had a light fall on him in the band room the other day. So, it's not just pool, it's the band room too. But here's my question. When we get to the point where we cannot raise taxes anymore because those unfunded mandates are getting greater, where do we cut? Where do we start to cut? Because eventually something's gonna have to give. And something's gonna have to be cut, and it's gonna have to be a program, a class. We already, like I said earlier, we had members of this board vote no on a Latin teacher. We have a craft teacher that we did not replace because we wanted to save money. So now looking at the tax increases, what comes after that? Where do we cut?
Yeah, I mean, and I want to resurrect Bruce Woodsky's famous saying, we can't be all things to all people, but we have an obligation to our facilities, and
We also have
that
an
is an
obligation to
integrated
the
part.
academics of our students.
Kirsten, Mrs. Porter.
Hi, I'm Kirsten Porter, and I want to look at it from a different side to everyone. When we're talking about the tax base, what can we do to benefit our students? You've mentioned the Latin teacher several times. I don't want to see any teacher ever go, but while you were on the board, we also eliminated a German teacher. We also eliminated a French
Because we had
teacher.
lack of interest.
I'm just-
Please let her finish.
I would like to just speak for a moment. So, what I'm looking at is I am raising my children here. I'm a taxpayer here. I'm deeply involved in this community. I moved here because my husband felt this was the best place to raise our children. And I trusted my husband in that, and we chose to raise our children here. One of the best things that you can do is to have a successful community, a successful school district, and facilities throughout the community and in the school district that benefit the children. And when you have that, you draw people into your community. We have housing plans being built all over the place, and they are paying a large amount of taxes. They're moving here because Beaver has a fantastic school system. Our school district is top in the county, but we're not okay with that. Your teachers here are not okay with just being top of the county. They want to be top in the state. That's why people move here. They move here because of the education the kids are getting and the opportunities their kids are getting. And that's why when we talk about a tax base, where's this money going to come from? We want people to move here. When people move here, the money comes in. So rather than tear each other apart, rather than tear our district apart, let's make those connections. I love making that connection with Beaver Borough. How about Brighton Township? How about Vanport? How about Bridgewater? Let's pull ourselves together. Let's have a fantastic facility. We have a fantastic education system, and build upon that and get along. That's all I need to say.
Right, because the school district and the borough both want the same thing.
And I hear that. I hear that, Wendy. And you and I have benefited from the education our children have gotten. And I want to continue that. And the facilities are a major part of that, because that's what draws people in, along with the academics, the reputation.
So I'm sorry, are you in favor of taking a step back and looking at a new facility? Are you talking about
Absolutely, I'm
repairing this
not,
one?
because I have watched this happen. I have watched this building deteriorate. I have looked at your locker rooms. I have looked at that pool. I have worked my butt off at the snack shack every summer when I should be out earning extra money to pay for my kids' college. I'm volunteering at the snack shack along beside my children who are also working at that pool because we believe in the programs that it's offering. We don't have the time to put it on hold, because when we put it on hold, we are opening ourselves up to other things that are going to happen, whether we don't have whether something, the higher cost, injuries, you name it. I want to move forward because you know what? Everybody has worked hard on this. We need to be a district that continues to move forward, not a district that stands by and waits.
Scott, I had a question, and I know we want to get this to a vote.
it's
I'm
okay.
sure, I think we already know where this is going to go. So I just have a question about the actual motion itself.
Yeah.
It's saying that we're going to put this on hold and wait for Beaver Borough to do a feasibility study, which I don't think is the correct terminology of what we're looking for here.
Okay.
Because the borough of Beaver already did a feasibility study years ago, so I know that they want to do, I think the idea would be to do a joint feasibility study with the school district, not have them do one and come back to us. I thought
That's
the
actually
idea
not
was,
what they said at their meeting. At their meeting, they said they wanted to do a feasibility with 3 scenarios. The first scenario
on their own, with separate
Yes.
from us.
Separate from us.
Mike, is that? I thought we were putting this on hold and we were going to do a feasibility study together as a group. And that's what the goal
That was a
was.
suggestion by the borough manager at a work session where with no vote, and so it would be brought, if we move forward on it, it would be brought up for a vote in the future. So there's been no authorization for feasibility study.
But would it make sense for us to, if we did put this on hold, which is probably not going to happen, but wouldn't it make sense to do a feasibility study together, the district and the, or why does the borough want to do it on their own and then come back to, I think we should.
So Jared, is it fair enough if we made a motion to amend it to just says authorize the administration to stop all work on the pool except for geotechnical analysis and interior natatorium design, period? That way it leaves, if that's what the board wants as a majority, that leaves us with flexibility. It's not setting a deadline for a particular date or 2 weeks after a feasibility study is done. That's just an indefinite hold for right now, allowing us the most latitude.
I mean, I'd be fine with that.
Okay.
I just feel like we're.
So do you want to, we can vote on a motion to amend
You would need a, yeah.
So, I mean, do you?
Dr. Rowe, does that make sense? I don't know if what I'm asking makes sense to you or to anybody here. But I thought the idea was for us to go together and do this.
It makes sense,
feasibility.
and he's correct. There was a work session. They did not set aside money to do it. They talked about setting aside money to do it. There was no vote. So if, instead of doing 3 scenarios on their own, it would be 2 scenarios on their own and 1 scenario jointly, that's reasonable. And Mr. Peterson saying that we would stop it after the word design does accommodate your desire.
Dr. Rowe, but
Yes.
he's not acting on the borough anymore. Is the borough asking for this?
No, I think he was stating that would provide us as a district, if we choose to do this, that would provide us the most leeway and latitude to determine how we want to do it. It wouldn't put the entire onus of the feasibility study on the borough. It could be done jointly if we wanted to go.
Because they're looking at doing rehab, full construction on their own, but the third component is a mixture of both. And I want to make sure that we want to be involved in that mixture too. So I think it needs to be phrased that way, where the third component of that would be a joint thing and not them doing it on all 3 parts on their own, if that makes sense.
You should make a motion to amend it to take that last part out.
I don't even know what
You
that
already
is.
have a motion on the floor.
You can
motion
move to amend it.
That's legitimate.
Well, then I would move to amend it to put that verbiage in there,
All right,
To
so
eliminate.
whatever that may be.
So the move is to amend the motion to read as follows. Authorize the administration to stop all work on the pool except for geotechnical analysis and interior natatorium design. So the motion is by Mr. Thomas. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. DeKetch. Can we do a roll call vote here, Mr. Secretary?
This is
For
just
the
for the
record,
amendment, right?
Yeah,
this is to vote to amend item A to remove everything after the word design.
Gotcha.
So again, authorize the administration to stop all work on the pool except for geotechnical analysis and interior natatorium design. So you're just voting to amend the motion, not to approve or deny, just to amend.
Mr. Barodelli?
Yes.
Mr. Bickerton?
Yes.
Mr. Bovalino?
Yes.
Mrs. DeKetch?
Yes.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Mrs. Yates?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Great.
Amendment.
All right, so item A now reads, authorize the administration to stop all work on the pool except for geotechnical analysis and interior natatorium design. Do I need a new motion now, John? Or does the
No.
existing?
Okay.
Okay, so we have that. Any final thoughts, comments?
Mr. President, just make sure that everyone understands what a yes vote means and what a no vote means.
Excellent. So a yes vote is that we will stop. John, correct me if my language is wrong here. We are going to stop for an indeterminate amount of time any work on Phase 1A that was recently approved until further notice. So yes is to stop, no is to continue with the work on Phase 1A.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Can we do a roll call vote, John?
Sure. Mr. Barodelli?
No.
Mr. Bickerton?
Yes.
Mr. Bovalino?
No.
Mrs. DeKetch?
Yes.
Mrs. Hill?
No.
Mrs. Johnson?
No.
Mr. Peterson?
No.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Mrs. Yates?
No.
6 noes, 3 yeses.
Do I have a move to adjourn?
Yep.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned, 8:19.